Hello, my name is Szymon Stemplewski and I represent Adarte Foundation and Shortways Festival. In a few minutes, we launch our new project, RR Café. It's kind of combination of R&D lab and safe space for dialogue. I would like to thank our partners, British Council, Creative Europe Media and Miasto Poznań. I hope you spend with us nice time. Enjoy.
Okay, amazing. Welcome to the RR Café, breaking new ground in film curating. And we have with us 4 amazing film curator people who are going to introduce themselves one by one. We're going to talk for, I guess, as long as we can, like a sort of 50 minutes, something like that. And questions from the audience in the room, questions in the audience on YouTube and Facebook, and make it a conversation so that feel free, once we've kind of covered the basic ground, feel free to jump in with questions and we'll try to answer them if we can. So essentially what's happened is we've been in a room together for an entire day yesterday talking about what we do and the future of film programming, and we're trying to have a solution-based discussion, if it's possible, about why we're here, and we've been brought together because essentially we've got people from Poland, the UK, and Germany with very different approaches to finding solutions to hack the system. So maybe we're going to begin with a little intro from Igor. Thank you.
Yes, so we were trying to do that the last days. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I'm Igor Gama, I'm from Brazil. I studied cinema in Argentina. I made crazy films and I brought one to Berlin. I remember 8 years ago, I went to the building of the Berlin International Film Festival. I knocked at the door. I gave a DVD that was chosen the film festival. It became one of the most important German films of the year. And I didn't know why I was there, so I was a migrant lost in that time, going to different parts of the world to show the film. And when I came back to Berlin, I was invited to be part of the Berlinale, in the generation section. So I'm programming for them since 5 years, trying to break new ground in seeing cinema from the youth perspective, and also trying to give this chance to new filmmakers to amplify their voices. Sometimes I'm now working for Hamburg Kurzfilm Film Festival, Short Film Festival Hamburg, and also Durban International South Africa Film Festival. And that's basically what I do.
Hello, I'm Marlena Gabryszewska. It's nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm president of the Art House Cinemas Association in Poland, but with 12 years history as a programmer in the cinema illusion and after electronic. Now what we try to do is to find a new way for the cinemas, for the art house cinemas after the pandemic period. It's not the easy way because our situation is changing, our audience are changing. So we have a lot of things to rethink and to do in another way. During the pandemic time, we create the platform, streaming platform, but for us it's more than more like the huge virtual cinema. It's called mojeekino.pl, and what I'm talking about the virtual cinema because it's created for the cinemas, for our cinemas, and you can find there a lot of virtual screening rooms, and you have to buy the ticket for the cinema to watch the movies. So that was our answer for the crisis, for the lockdown, and we created it in 2020, but it still exists and still help the cinemas to survive because we finished the lockdown, but the situation still is not very well in the art house world, I can say, not only in the cinemas, but I think in the festivals and filmmakers and so on. So it's now the time for rethink everything and to create new future for the cinemas. And only one thing I wanted to add. We had and we still have 230 cinemas in our association, so it's a lot, and I really hope that that number will stay for a long, long time. Thank you.
We all hope, I think. So my name is Paweł Kosuń, and I'm actually here representing two sides of the business because above all I'm a film producer, producing films since, I don't know, like 15 years, mainly international co-productions. But I'm also like film programmer and like festival director. We, like 10 years ago, we founded Wrocław Film Foundation, and we run like couple of film events like Polish Cinema for Beginners, maybe you know that one, or Miasto Movie. It's the most, I think, one of the most important film festivals showing documentary about architecture and cities. And the one that it's the biggest one, I mean the biggest one in a small city, actually, in a very small city called Świdnica. So the festival is Spectrum Film Festival. And we are actually proud of this one because we started from the scratch and from in the place where the cinema actually, in the city there is no cinema. So we brought the cinema to the city, and now after 8 years of existing, we think we have like very good audience, and it was a good experience. And I think this is the reason why I'm here, because we managed to build up an audience where there was no audience at all. So, and I think I can share some ideas we had at that time and what has changed till now. So.
Hello everyone, my name is Isra and I'm UK based, but I grew up in Sweden and I'm Iraqi, and I primarily curate and do film stuff through Tape Collective, which I co-founded 7 or 8 years ago with my co-founder Angela Moneke. We met at the Barbican Young Programmers, which Susie was also part of, workshop facilitator. And we were given this incredible opportunity to program at the Barbican Centre and to program part of their cinema, but we felt like we could do more and we wanted to do more. And one of the things that we set out to do 8 years ago was to demystify the industry for people. So we felt like we'd sort of were sneaking in a way, and we were trying to make it easier for other people to do the same thing, and to sort of just remove this, you know, how sort of mysterious the film industry can be, and just simplify it for people. So a lot of the work we do is we program seasons of films that don't have UK distribution. So films that have been successful in the festival circuit, but then haven't been picked up officially as a distribution. We also work a lot with short films and curating programs for short films, or around short films. And a lot of our sort of curation is cross arts. So we don't do anything without an added activity, and we don't do anything without collaboration. There's not been a single program that we've just delivered on our own. We always have to collaborate, and it's everything from curating a playlist or curating short films or a panel discussion, but there's always an add-on. And a lot of the themes we explore is the mixed heritage experience, so the sort of migrant experience across Europe, and in particular sort of people who might identify as having like dual identities and coming from two different cultural backgrounds. And more recently, we've actually, because of all the work we've done, we figured that we might as well start distributing films instead of doing the work of distributors. So we distributed our first film last year and are hopefully continuing that.
Okay, so amazing group of people and amazing activities that you do. And I just wonder, what inspires you and where do you find the inspiration for the work that you do or that you want to do? So maybe if we take it around the other way. Of the
So I think the work that we do at Tape is very much, it started off in quite a selfish way where we're like, and I think with curation, the advice is always don't curate for yourself, curate for an audience. But actually the genesis of Tape was based on what do we want to see. And it just had to be because there was something that we could respond to immediately. Because we weren't part of a wider conversation about what do people want. And as we've progressed, we're able to sort of have that conversation and people are able to like get in touch with us. And especially if we are curating films that are difficult to get hold of or difficult to watch in the UK, we can then facilitate that conversation. But in terms of inspiration, it is sort of it's the gaps, I think, like what's missing, what's, what can we sort of tap into, who do we want to work with? And also, surprisingly enough, I think I'm working a lot more with filmmakers than I thought I would, because there's sort of so many steps removed from cinema exhibition and the filmmaker. There's about 30 steps before, but because we work with short films quite a lot, the access is immediately to the artists and the filmmakers. So I think that's probably where we get the inspiration from. And when we do a short films program, I rarely start with a theme. I always start with one film that I've seen and I don't know what to do with it, because people will submit their short films to us and I just don't have anywhere for it to go. And then eventually, if it's a film that's really stuck with me, we'll then sort of create something around it, which is, it's nothing to do with quality. It's to do with like what works together and what has this inspired, and then just like sort of taking really random things out of it. And so I think a lot of our like full programs have actually been inspired by someone's short film or someone's poem or someone's article that we've not been able to place, and then we've been able to sort of curate something around it.
Funny, I mean, you mentioned like two words, like a gap. So what inspired me, and I think the whole foundation I run, are the gaps on the map. So it's like it's very good feeling and nourishing feeling when you really rediscover places, rediscover the audience. Like we are looking always the places where there's no audience, and then you get this immediately like response from the audience. So it's like very, very important for me also as a producer, because like when you produce films, so you have to wait for the result like 3-4 years, and sometimes it's very frustrating. So I thought like maybe there is a need, I mean I need it for sure, like to organize festivals and to create the audience, just to get this energy, this inspiration like immediately. So I really like to show like very, very difficult films, like hard house films, to the audience and look at the at the reactions, and the reactions are just beautiful because the people are really touched. So what inspires me is like to push the boundaries, to like open people's mind and also like something that I wouldn't really think about when you organize something like in very small places like cities and villages. You think like your approach is like, okay, they maybe it's not educated audience. You assume that it's not educated, but it's not all about like education. They react in a beautiful way. So this is some kind of inspiration for me. This is from one side, and from the other side, of course, I mean, I'm traveling a lot, and you know, I think as a curator and programmer, you have to travel. You have to be on the move. You have to visit all the festivals, meet people. This is the obvious thing. I mean, the obvious side where you take the inspiration. But I think like the main energy is like really direct from the audience.
Thank you. I can totally agree with Pavel. And of course, cinema is business because we are selling the product made by filmmakers. But most of all, cinema is a community. Community created by us. Community created, united by the same sensibility and values. And that's what we can do as programmers. It's showing people not only art house cinemas, but the films which are really important, which changing the mindset and create really responsible community. So it's really important, and this is our mission, I think. So that's what inspires me. It's the people, it's the audience, because everything is what we are doing. It's for the audience and because of the audience.
I think a lot has to do with my experience, mostly when I was young, but still today around the world and crossing borders. I find also this time was very formative. Mostly when I was illegal migrant, I think it was more formative than now. Because I really enjoy when I'm programming to receive films from all over the world and to see what's happening in the Middle East, in Africa, in Brazil, in France. And as a young viewer, because I used to go to the cinema always in Recife, in Brazil, and I really also think that is a transformative public action when you are showing a film that's showing a different way of life that can open the mind of people, that opened my mind. That's why I live here and the other places nowadays. So it's a lot about feeling the air of the world every year as a programmer. And we have the privilege also to bring this air of the world to Berlin, to Europe. And so that's my favorite part, is when I see all the filmmakers there from all over and crossing borders, like independently of your socio-economic status, just because your film is good and deserves to be shown. And normally because we have to decide what we are going to show to the audience. And we discussed this a bit, and I really like also to be personal and visionary, but also for me, I always ask myself, does it matter? Is showing this film, does it matter? Does it change something to make this festival? Does it change something to talk about that in our catalogs? You know, we can't change the world, but we can enact changes in the world, and I try to do that every year.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. Because what we've also been talking about is, and Pavel said it, that you're all multidisciplinary. You do other things than programming, because essentially programming isn't necessarily a sustainable living on its own, and also because your other activities kind of feed into your programming. So it's maybe Marlene, you're different because it's in a sense you found the place that you can nourish yourself whilst having one activity or one job in a way. But these three are like freelance programmers who are also doing many other things. So maybe just to talk a little bit about that, as how that's feeding into your thinking about programming.
Well, I have a direct relation because I arrived in the film festivals with films. And then I really feel like now curating that I'm trying really to open opportunity to a new generation. And I know the difference it can make, these decisions, to a new generation of filmmakers. So I try to choose with that responsibility. Then, yes, I worked as director, as editor, and I also worked in performance arts. And I think it's very interesting to think about the other arts and what they are doing too, and what different. And as a programmer too, like being with other works, I feel like I'm not used to things. I'm still like I can still get indignated with it. I'm still coming from the outside, crossing a border, being inside, and jumping outside. And I try to organize the year actually like that too. Not spend the whole year programming. Then also coming like with fresh energy every year. But yeah, not get used to things.
No, I have voice. Yeah. I think it's you have to do other things, otherwise you can't do the job. I mean, because you can't earn your life with programming. That's the problem, you know, and that's the problem also of, I think, like new generations of, you know, programming and creators. I mean, we have to be aware that it's some kind of a very expensive hobby at the end, because you know you can't really earn proper money, and we have to, as a experienced programmer, we have to take this responsibility to say it loud, you know, that it's not, you know, because everyone thinks that it's you know, that's a nice job and you can make a living of it, but it's not. Basically, it's a nice job, that's for sure, because you're deciding, like, I mean, you're shaping the audience in the place where you've organized festivals or like screenings, whatever. But at the end, it's also business. Like doing festival is also business. What I wanted to mention actually before, but I mean, being like a programmer, you have to look at many aspects um, of of festival life, basically. So you have to, you know, be everywhere, basically. Like on the festivals, you have to create all the network. You have to think about financing. You have to think about programming as well. But it's only a part of your job, and it's very important to know that it's not. We are not sitting on the table through the whole year thinking about like 20 films we want to show on the festival. It's not. It's just it's the whole world that you need to embrace, basically. So I don't even remember what was the question, but yeah, exactly. So. And in order to like survive, you have to work like you as a director, editor, or me as a producer. Like it's impossible like to live out of festivals. But still, it's nice. I think I would recommend to everyone this job, but quite difficult.
Yeah, I think that it's also depending on how you define curator programmer. I don't do festival submissions. I'm not a selector. I don't do competition. I only curate like special events, but I think of myself as a programmer of events. So it's more like events programming than I've been a cinema programmer. It's so boring. It's genuinely the least creative job you can ever do as a cinema programmer. Because if for new releases, because you're tempted to want to do creative things and added things and additional things, but then there's always a question of budget. So in terms of, you know, programming as a full-time job, I think in the UK is usually, from who I know, it's usually cinema programmers, and that is holdovers and it's like new releases. So I've done it, and I think people who aspire to that, you know, and to think that was my dream, to be able to like program a cinema, and then you get to it and it's like putting things on sale. And this isn't everyone's sort of experience. And I think in terms of, it's what you said about the need, like what's the need? So for us, we need to bring in an audience that doesn't just, that isn't assumed in cinema. So we tend to work with a younger audience, we tend to work with like queer audiences, quite a lot of women, you know, sort of creatives. And so that requires a lot of work for us to do. And so therefore I'm then in a position, because of tape and the work I've done with tape, I can then go get, you know, a freelance job as an audience developer or marketing person, if you want to call it that. So yeah, I think there is definitely, but you know, I think if we're honest, we also probably enjoy doing a lot of things. You know, sometimes it is out of necessity, and sometimes I actually got asked in an interview once, quite a high-profile sort of job institution, and they said, "Do you get bored easily because you jump around freelance jobs around a lot?" And my reply was that that's not my fault. You know, the freelance thing is, someone has a contract, they give you the contract, they give you the money, and then you're done. You know, that's not a decision that I've made. It's just that sometimes that's where the jobs are. So there's definitely something about sustainability, and if the only things that are like full-time, you know, permanent jobs are something like programming a venue, then I don't really know what the full-time equivalent of that is for special events or curation or other forms of curation.
Okay, because I mean, in a way, yes, I wanted to come back to you, Marlene, because what you're doing to educate audiences and kind of re-educate cinema managers at the same time. So there's this kind of nice thing that you're doing to bring in new audiences and bring back the old audiences.
As I said, our world, I mean, cinema world is changing really fast, not only because of streaming platforms, but because most of all because the audience are changing and their needs are changing very fast, and we have to change our mindset. We as cinema managers and programmers, we have to more. We have to know who is our audience, who is the one specific person who is coming to us, and what she or he needs. Because, as I said, cinema doesn't exist without audience, and that's what we are doing is try to sell the film, but also to create the community. And that's why we as association, we have special trainings also for cinema managers, and we try to teach them again or convince how important are social media in those times, not only as a field of advertising of our program, but also for me it's really important when somebody is coming to the cinema, shoot the selfie and put on Facebook or Instagram. It's even better advertisement than I don't know, our post or something like that. And also we try to we have a training like audience development training and about the law and something like that, because I think that we need a new generation of the cinema managers, and I don't mean about the age, but about how we think about the audience and what we are doing and how we are selling the art. It's brutal, but it's still we have to earn the money.
So yeah, it's fundamental essentially. And one of the things that came up in our discussion was it was Israel. You said, is the next generation as nostalgic about cinemas as we are? You know, like we have a kind of relationship with cinemas that's very primordial, and they don't. And
Yes,
so
but the other side is we have to create something unique in our cinema. We have to create somehow the needs in our audience, that they have to come to our venue and they will be part. They will take a part with something totally unique. And we have to. I mean, nowadays cinema are more like opera or ballet or something like that than used to be, because we are not just the building where you can go and watch the film on the big screen, because you can have a big screen in your own apartment. It's doesn't unique anymore. You have to you need a special experience.
Add something, just I think that you touch a very important thing as a creator. I mean, we have to create the need of the cinema. You said that it's like, you know, the new generation, they don't have this feeling of being in the cinema, but it's more than a program. It's more about a need, really. Like, we create something that it's like immediately like wanted by the people where we create the festival. Yeah, maybe not immediately, because like being creator and programmer, you have to be stubborn, like in a good way, you know. It's because it's a process. Like after 1 year, after first edition, second edition of the festival, you won't really see the results you would like to see. It's impossible almost. So you through the years, you create the need, you create the very, let's say, audience that it's attached basically to the idea you present as a programmer. So you're like creator of the cinema. We have to create the cinema like each time we organize or program a festival. It's like rethinking the cinema, rethinking the program once again and once again, once again. It's not that we create a festival and it will last forever as it was in the first edition or second edition. It's all the time like rethinking the idea and trying to make the audience really want to come to the cinema. Because as you said, like cinema as a building, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not a matter of, I mean, in Świdnica there is no cinema, as I mentioned. Every year we bring a DCP BIMA there just to theater in order to, I mean, like show the film. So it's really about creating the need. That I wanted to say that.
yeah, maybe you can go back to school, because what you did when you what you did when you arrived in Generation, what you've been, well, like your manifesto to make change inside the program of Generation, and your kind of.
I wanted also to because I find that point of the cinema super important too, because both when I was in Brazil, I was going to Cinema da Fundação, where a huge scene came from the cinema, including the most important names of Brazilian film nowadays. And in Argentina too, I had this place, which was the University of the Film School in Buenos Aires. And in Berlin, it's Berlinale Generation. It's this place that we generate a community around. And this community meet all the time. Sometimes I'm here now in Shortwaves, and I'm starting to see faces again. And yes, for example, when I was young in Brazil, my first boyfriend I met in a cinema, for example. So I find that experience super important. Like, it's not only about showing a film, it's who comes to the cinema, which friends you make, and how your lifestyle is surrounded by this filmic energy. Yes. In Berlinale, in Berlinale actually I think I came also to bring more diversity, and also, yes, something outside of Europe too. And also because I'm a multimedia artist, so I try also to think about the future in terms of cinema. It's not be stuck to a repetitive cinema, but really to look what's new And and I was lucky also to have been given the space, also to have a very diverse committee nowadays working with us. So it's really like everyone is really engaged with what we are doing. That's also super important.
Yeah, maybe bring it back to Israel about essentially what you're doing to hack the system. This thing of the activity you're doing is kind of in response to the situation that you were confronted with. So this kind of.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just simplifying it, it's being bored and then thinking, well, it can be different. And I'm not trying to, we talked about this, I'm not trying to change the system. I'm not trying to like, I'm not trying to like, I'm not entirely sure that that's possible, but I'm fully aware of the restrictions and the possibilities. And I will push certain restrictions. But I'm also just interested in carving out a space for communities that I know are interested in what we do, growing that space a bit. And if that means doing things on, it's just easier that way to then do things on your own term. Because one of the things that's worked really well for tape is that we just do what we want to do. That's how we started. And what I've noticed, I can only speak of the sort of UK industry, is that it's so small. It's so small that by the time you've done something good and you've got someone's attention, all of a sudden you are in a big institution, you are in a big cinema, or you're part of the chain. And so something I'm always really thinking about is like the mindful growth. If what has set tape, made tape stand out is that we do things differently, we can't ever lose that. But if you're then all of a sudden invited by the people that rejected you, it's a mindfuck. Like, it's really confusing in terms of like, I don't want to be there either. I don't want to be there either. But it's almost like, in a way, the only place you can go. And so I'm just quite mindful of like, I don't, I really have to be honest that we don't do like, we're going to do something different, we're going to change it, everything's going to, we're going to show them. That's not our attitude. Our attitude is like, that is exhausting. This is also exhausting, but at least it's on our terms. That's all it is. It's almost like out of convenience. And if you have that sort of resilience and perseverance, it's worth it. If then it's totally fine, because it'll be exhausting, but at least you get something out of it. I'm really thrilled that I get to do whatever I want. I get rejected loads. We still get rejected loads. There's still people that are booked, cinemas are booked up and they can't fit us in, and we can't get the rights to this film, and there's no budget here. But, eventually and ultimately, one of the projects will go through. So, yeah.
We also talked about what would be your one thing to change the system. Like, each of you, if there's one thing you could kind of go, we'd like to change that, what would it be?
So continuing on from that, in terms of, really haven't thought about that. I do think that, actually there's a number of lists of things. I think it would be nice if things were easier, whatever that means, but just easier, because we get into this routine of hardship is part of it, and you need to work really, 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 really hard to get there because it's so competitive. Fine. And it's a sort of survival of the fittest, but wouldn't it be nice if it was just a little bit easier? I think another thing is like, I think we all need to agree in terms of like sales agent, distributors, venues, exhibitors, marketing people, we all need to come into an agreement in terms of like, what are we doing? Things have changed. There are people that are realizing that things have changed more than others. I think like cinemas are probably the ones that are slightly more behind, and so you find like distributors moving to streaming or working a different way, and the theatrical window is a bit different, and the way they charge things is a bit different. But then you have other sort of entities that just want to go back to pre-COVID, and it just doesn't work. And I feel like there's a bit of a discrepancy in terms of an agreement about what things have changed. Let's accept it. What are we going to do, and what is the result we want? And I think, oh yeah, the one thing as well is in addition to the sort of like this idea of sustainability, it's also just planning ahead of like, we have a lot of like emerging curators training in the UK and possibly here as well, and you know, what I said before about the sustainability of programming jobs that is in cinema programming, that's another thing that I would just like to know what the plan is. Because we have, I constantly get invited to do like mentoring sessions or one-on-one sessions or, you know, panel, which is really nice. But my situation as a programmer isn't that stable. So for me to then sort of, it's like the blind leading the blind, but, you know, it's for me to then speak to a young person and be like, this is what you should do. Not entirely sure of where they're going to end up. Because they're either going to end up without a job or with my job, which is, you know, something that I'm just then also not trying to worry about. So that's my list.
For me, actually, that's a very difficult question, because during our session yesterday, I was saying all the time that it's impossible to change the system. So I would say...
but it's more of a kind of utopia question than a real...
Yeah, and I would just say just to work better with the system. That's the way how I see the future, because it's very difficult to change the European system of, you know, support and how the projects and how the festival are financed. What I would like to give like the message to the system, whatever the system is, I don't know. At the end, that the people that decide about the money and all the grants, that they really have this broader view, like in where we're going to be in 5, 10 years, not in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Because right now I have the feeling that, you know, we are supporting the new ways of watching films, like streamers, for example, in the productions, you know, like all the productions that streamers do in Poland, they are like subsidized by the system, basically. So, and after 2, 3, 4 years, we will wake up, and, you know, there won't be like proper cinemas anymore. You know, we have right now like over 200 cinemas, like very small cinemas, but they won't survive because this, I mean, part of them, or they won't survive if the system won't change. I mean, the people that that are giving money to survive, also the festivals, you know, there are a lot of festivals. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say it's also for us to decide which cinema we're going to go to. So it's like this thing of your online system of you buy a ticket and the films are on at all these different cinemas, but you choose your cinema. So it's like it's a choice as well that we can try and support individually. I don't know.
Yes, but I think at the end it won't help. I mean, we won't survive only by, you know, it's great when a cinema is full, but we need like support from the system, from the state. And when I see, like when I talk with my friends, director of the festivals, we need like we need to be sure that we will be granted, we will be supported, not in 1 year, but in terms of 5 years maybe, so we can develop the idea we have, because we all are insecure in the place. We can't really plan, you know, it's like from 1 year to another, from 1 year to another. So that would be my, let's say, wish, just to have like the solid ground that on which we build something, like something that it's not temporary. Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's not about the system, but about the people, because people create the system. So that's what we need to do, to convince them that that's what we are doing. I mean, the cinemas, the festival, the art house directors, that our work is very important. And now we have a lot of struggles, and of course we have to convince people who decide about the money, about the support, that cinemas are important. We have to convince the audience that cinema are still important. We have to convince producers who start to believe in streaming platform and to start to create create the films for the streaming platforms, that cinema are still important. And actually, I think that we all together create the cinema world. I mean, it's not only we as programmers, as curators, or as managers of the cinema, but we all do it, that audience, directors, producers, and people who support culture. We all create this world, and we have to distributors, of course, and we have to do it together, and we can do it only in one way, just to talk each other and to start to understand our needs and our way, new way, and I mean new way with showing the films, with programming, and try to understand to each other. Without that, we can do nothing, because system create the people. People create the system, sorry. Yeah, but sometimes yes. But sometimes yes, unfortunately.
I always say artists takes risks for all of us. I would like to see the institutions of culture in Europe and in Latin America, around the world, taking creative risks in how they distribute resources. These resources are not from one institution, for one group of people. It's public resources from society and from our industry. So I think it's very concentrated and old, the model of funding the arts. And I think that we have to remember to break rules, because creativity needs a space to breathe. So we always have to not follow all the rules, but also see case by case which project is happening. It's creating a community, and it deserves our support. Instead of asking the artists, the projects, the producers to fit into our purpose. So I'm also programming, I'm always looking what the films are telling me. I'm here watching. I'm seeing what you are doing. I'm not like saying what has to be done, let's say. And I also think there is a huge work of diversity to be done in Europe. Gender, Russia, we are, at least in Germany, we are so late and so small in this discussion. So it's completely inappropriate, and that's also one thing about generating community. Because as soon as we start to include these diverse perspectives into our programming, we are also seeing these audiences showing up to the cinema, and that's maybe our future audience. But also it's about being central to society, because that's the reason of culture. We are the oxygen of democracy. And in Brazil, we have a huge situation now politically, and the Minister of Culture as well. The President, I think also the artistic community thinks that culture is a very important tool to glue the society again, to repair what has been broken. So we don't need to explain why we need these incentives. We need them to work properly. We need them to work modernly. And I also think a part of taking risks is it's about innovation. We should never try to repeat, but innovation is super important nowadays for cinemas to survive and to thrive. And in general, we have a whole new world to fix. We have a big problem socially, like climate change, and we have to go there. We have to go to our new problems. We can't stay discussing things that in Germany, we are discussing the reform of the film funding for more than 20 years. So now is the time to make the change. The industry, the professionals of cinema, we asked, we want 50% of the funds in Germany to be given for artistic and cultural reasons, not for industrial reasons, not for the television to show the film. We want to support creativity. And that's also like an ecosystem that can thrive, because nowadays we are spending taxpayers' money and the ecosystem is not thriving. So I think we have something in common. It's not like we against the funders, against the television. We have something in common, and we have to have more democratic, cultural, social aspects. directing these decisions. And this is not a decision from one institution on one moment. It's something that our community, our society deserves. That's what I think.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think we've got now time. We could open up to the audience, and my microphone will be the question. Does anyone have a question here to ask? You want us to keep going? You have a question? Yeah, sure.
Like maybe that's not the question, but you were talking before about the new generation that is like that for them the cinema is not that obvious. Okay, like I just wanted to give my personal like experience that as a person that is from the like younger generation, for me the cinema allows to kind of focus on the film because we are so overstimulated by social media, by everything, but by the advertisement, everything. The cinema allows for me, for example, to fully focus on the film. That is for me unachievable by streaming platforms and by doing it on my own computer or anything. So that's just my voice.
It gives us hope. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I mean, we can...
I would like to ask you what was the, can say, most difficult thing you faced during this 2 days, we can say, workshop? What was like most, something would not make your thinking about what are you doing, like putting you not in the comfortable position, because I'm thinking like what we are doing, because I'm part of the system too, like our system, we can say. I think it's like big luxury, but sometimes, we have a lot of struggle into that, and I'm really curious if something was really painful. Can you name it? And if some have any, answers how to work with it.
Yeah, we did have a question. Was what was the what gives you pain and what gives you fun, and also synergies and tensions. So it's these things kind of go together. Maybe we can bring you down the line again.
Okay, so I'm starting this one. I think the painful things is the thing is like it's all going to come down to money at some point, right? So I think that's the thing, but it's got different kind of levels to it. So one big thing for me is like commercial does not need to mean bad, and community does not need to mean no money. And so that's a frustration I have. I have no issues with business or spreadsheets or incomes and budgets. I love it. But I think when there's like a lack of support in terms of seeing that you cannot just decide on a film or a program and put it out there and then be disappointed when no one shows up. Because for it to make an impact financially and in an experience, you have to put work into it. And it has to be something that's consistent, and it has to be for a long time. So I definitely think like in terms of compensation and being concerned about how the compensation happens came up a lot. And separately as well as like I have a part-time job in addition to tape. Now if I had a full-time job, I might be able to do tape just for fun and I wouldn't care. But because it's a part-time job, it means that the things I'm putting in is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it's like that kind of like balance is happening now. It's a bit of a dance where, well, now I have to make it a full-time job because otherwise I only have a part-time job. And also there's other people that I'm working with that, that need to be compensated. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Shall I? Well, just I think going back to the point about like, how do we work together? And I think it's really, really rare for filmmakers to understand exhibition. And I think it's really rare for exhibition to understand distribution or whatever it is. So there's like a disconnect. And the reason to why tape worked really well is because we had 3 members that all worked in different parts of the film industry. So Angela is a film producer. I always worked in cinemas. Our friend was in distribution. So like we could come together and answer the questions. Not one of us knew all the answers, but we could help each other. So like Angie might ask me a question about like, why does the program come out on Fridays? And I could explain it. Or, you know, I'll ask her a production question or whatever. And so there's definitely like a disconnect in terms of communication and knowledge between those various industries, which I find incredibly difficult, because you then have one sector of the industry wanting something but not understanding why they can't have it. And that's just like a sort of vicious cycle, because everyone's just going to be like, well, they should have tweeted more about this. We would have then sold out. And it's like, it's just not that easy.
You touch very interesting questions, but actually the most painful thing was the same question, is if there is any future for festivals and programming, because the question itself, and I was asking myself, is there any future, because of lack of money, because like, for example, in our foundation, I mean, the whole, we are like 10 of us or something, and no one works only for the foundation. It's like only, I mean, it's a part-time job. Actually, it's not even a part-time job. It's a hobby. And I am asking myself, and I was asking myself during our conversation, if there is a need to do this kind of job anymore. Like after years, you know what? I mean, in our generation, I mean, we wanted to do that because we wanted to do that. And when I'm observing right now the situation, there is a huge competition, like inside the film industry, that for sure. And this is maybe the reason why we don't really talk to each other, like, you know, because we don't have enough funding. So basically, we are like competitors all the time. We need to compete. So maybe it was also painful when I just realized maybe there are like too many festivals, film festivals, too many events, like, you know, because there are really little money. So we get frustrated, because how many festivals can be like supported by the states right now when the money and the funds for culture is getting lower and lower. You know, there are more important things, and I really hate this sentence, like, oh, there are more important things than culture. I mean, no, none. I mean, because for the future, I mean, it's so important, and it's obvious, of course, for us it's obvious, but when we talk with the people, like they're with a system, let's say, so when you observe the funding that in Ministry of Culture in Poland for culture, for film events, it's getting like really like that, and the same in the Polish Film Institute is like that, you know, so. This was very, very, very painful. Because we all want to, you know, make this happen, like festivals, films, whatever. But there is not enough money, and the future is uncertain. And this was the reason why I said, like 5 minutes ago, that it's very important and crucial for the industry that we get the solid ground, like financing ground, because if not, I mean, the very like, I was also like myself, if we will stay in the industry, like all of us, you know, because maybe sometimes we will just get so frustrated, because by this question only, like, is there future? I don't know. So, no, there is future. There is future. Yeah, of course.
Oh my God. So pessimistic. For me, really painful in the last 2 years. Really painful was hearing from the directors or producers that that it's the end of the cinema, and it was painful to hear how easily they start to think that the streaming platform are the savior, and they don't need the cinema anymore because they have a streaming platform. And it's okay. You can do the film for a streaming platform, but it's surprising that it was so easily to decide that watching film in the huge room on the huge screen, it doesn't important anymore. Yeah, that was really surprising and a bit painful, but generally for us it's all about money, of course, and how as Pavel said, it's cultural is important because create the community and create the human beings, so it's really important, and it's of course for me it's. But from the other side, we don't want to get the money from the government because of nothing. We are doing something, but to create a good program, to invite people for a Q&A or something like that, they cost money and a lot of money. And it's not a surprise that cinema doesn't selling the tickets. It's not the way to create the budget of the cinema. It's of course selling the coffee, tea, a lot of things, because it's not the ticket. So the money are really important, and support to create really good program, and of course the lineup, because we are living in a world that we have a lot of films, but the quality of the films it's sometimes is really, really low. So this is also important, the quality of the films, and money for create the good program and create the new generation of the young, sensitive and thinking people.
Now about synergies, I think that what I learned, I think that as we were talking about communities and cinemas and meeting people, and also international film festivals are places where people from all over the world come together for some days. And I feel that's where our strength lies, is our international community. So me, my projects, I'm always trying to, for example, we are doing our film in Germany, and then we got a partner in Madrid, and then in Munich, and then if we go, now we go to Iran also to do a service. And we also worked in Beirut a long time. So the idea is always to see around the world who the other people we know that are doing interesting things in their home countries, and try to associate with them, to run away from certain limitations. Because as soon as you change the country, it changes a lot of things, I like to say. And also I think cinema was born to be international. Cinema has the power to cross borders. And I think our community is actually our strength, and the international film community joins in many situations. We have to be more open so diverse people can join more these events. But for me as an artist, as a programmer, when I try to do a new project, I'm always thinking the people I know in different places, what they are doing, how can we collaborate. So I feel like there is the key for me, is this international association, and it's a lot of people, so we are kind of like a beacon on our organism around the world. And where is the pain? So the pain for me in the last years, I would say, is about gatekeepers that don't open. I had a lot of bad time with them. And also sometimes my personal experience, maybe they don't open because they don't want to hear some diverse opinions being told to society. And that goes a lot about racism in Europe, and who has the power to tell the story. A lot. Also gender, also social classes, but also sometimes about the style of cinema, because someone is trying to do something very particular and the gatekeeper doesn't accept that. And I can't accept the gatekeeper that doesn't open. Never. But I get so frustrated that I'm trying to be aware of these ones. And there are gatekeepers that are open, that they have experience from somewhere in their lives, a background that allows them to take decisions with passion. And in Germany, Europe, in Latin America, everywhere I'm trying to stay in that gatekeeper. And I don't like gates, I don't like borders, but I know that this will be the direction, because we are not going to spend our energy, resources, and emotions on something that doesn't want to change, unfortunately.
Okay, so we actually have a question from somebody on Facebook, and the question is, what would you advise film school students how best to select festivals for the premiere of successful but nevertheless student short films, how to find our programmers who are waiting for exactly our film? So it's the filmmaker, how do they find the right fit for their film?
The first thing that comes to my head is about watching films, because I'm watching films always since I was in the art house cinema, and I'm also, in that time I was choosing by the posters and what festivals it was there. So I think the films you like, and then try to make some comparison with your film, and try to send maybe to these places that you admire the films from, might be a good start. In our case, because we are making the premieres of films, also the first exhibition, we are very open. We are watching everything that you are doing in terms of film. So that's my approach. I'm putting there the film and I'm watching, second by second. There is the key for everything. We try to not have restrictions, but kind of to hear people around the world. Then, of course, it's an important thing. I think they can tell more about having consciousness about the distribution. And I think in my years from Recife to Buenos Aires to Berlin, I got to know also with whom I'm talking to, with whom I'm sending films to. So trying to be engaged, and also to, I think artists have a lot of things to contribute in interdisciplinary spaces. So also try not only to think of you as an artist, but part of an ecosystem of culture. And try to understand what the producer do, what the distributor do, what the funders are, and how is the landscape in general. And not only, hope that someone will save you. Like, I came to Berlin with the DVD, I went to that building, I knocked at the door opened, and I chose that person, I give the DVD to that person. So don't want someone to save you, just change things yourself.
You were lucky with this DVD, and you're talented. So I think the most, after years of experience in producing films, I think the most important thing is to know what kind of profile the festival has. You know, you can't really send over like your film to all the festivals, because it doesn't make sense. So basically it's the presence. Of course, when you're a film student, it's difficult to know all the festivals and know all the profiles of the festivals. But, you know, you have to do your homework, basically, and just at least, you know, look at the program of the last year of the festival and just see, okay, Berlinale, okay, they like the social themes, not your section. Yeah. Or, you know, you have like, I don't know, like Rotterdam, okay, so it's more like innovative thing, you know, but it's also like, it's very important because it's changing, like, you know, the programmers, they're changing their seats because the seats are hot. So yeah, especially in Rotterdam, but also in Berlin, you know, in Berlin, like the head of Berlin programming is the former head of Locarno, yeah. So this is very important where you send the film, you know. It's I think that this is the key, because I mean, as a young filmmaker, you get very fast frustrated because you send like hundreds of applications or submissions, and you can't be really accepted with this particular film to many festivals, because I mean, as a programmer, I have my taste. I don't like some kind of film. So if you want, I mean, you need to know me somehow through my festival. so you can have any chance to to be a part of Spectrum or to be part of Berlinale, to be a part of Alekino or whatever. So you have to really do your homework.
Yeah, and just to add that, ideally you have a producer who does this homework, who does like a lot of research and make sure the film is the best it can be, because I get this question a lot in terms of why didn't I get any feedback, or so-and-so, they're bastards because they didn't take my film. But the film just has to, don't focus so much about premiere status and red carpets, because the film just has to be the best it has to be, and just it's most likely that you need some outsider to tell you if there's like something to do. Also, I created a doc. I helped a friend with her festival circuit a few years ago, and I created a doc with national, UK-based and international festivals, the deadlines, criteria, fees, awards, adding links, hyperlinks to everything, and I spent 4 hours yesterday updating this for 2023. So that's the research. That's the homework. It's do the research in terms of what are these festivals, but also start with the research and maybe start that sort of process of like looking at festivals. And also budget is another thing, because some festivals charge a lot, some festivals don't charge a lot. So if you have like 50 euros or whatever to play around with, just be mindful about where that's going then, as opposed to sort of submitting to loads of festivals, not really knowing, have a favorite, I guess.
Okay, so that's all. So, question from Facebook and YouTube, and do we have any other questions? Yeah, sure.
So we've covered support system and producing of films and festivals, and I'd like to talk more about the audience, maybe. But I was wondering, and it really boils down to a very simple question. Do people watch enough, or do they watch too much? And of course it's a tricky question, because we can follow it up with a question, what do they watch? So it's about the quality and quantity as well. And I think we could like draw analogy to readership, viewership and readership, because there's this big discussion every year in Poland. People in Poland are reading less and less. But, well, is that entirely true? There are some authors that are best-selling and making some money, making a living, something that's not that easy with programming, as you said. And we also consume a lot of content in text and film form, any form. So I really wonder what's your take on that, considering your very diverse background, and should we encourage people to watch more? And if so, how much resources and time should they allocate in watching our art, what we produce? Like, can we take responsibility for making them watch 5 hours a day? Will that make them happier, right? Like, will that produce the change that we are all striving for? Or we should just let them go and live their lives and spend time with families or whatever, right? Because there's so much content. It's like, it's incomprehensible. And I'm also wondering if we should think about that in terms of market. Like, is this demand, a matter of demand and what we can offer? And the pricing and the distribution, all the mechanisms behind all that, we are all sort of, whether we want or not, we have to think like capitalists all the time. It's very unfortunate for artists nowadays, but this is a kind of a reality that we are living in. And this is one perspective, and the other perspective would be that of a diet. Like, what should you consume to be healthy? What kind of nutritious food should you take in every day, every week, every month? So there is not a single question, just a stream of thoughts. And I hope it will provoke some discussion among you. Thanks.
That's an excellent point, because I think that you're absolutely right in terms of, like, I know that we read more because I think apparently there's more people reading with captions now. There are more people watching films with captions, so we are reading more. And I guess for us maybe that we get stuck in a way of looking at ticket sales. So actually it doesn't really matter. I never think about whether or not people are watching it. So Tape has an online streaming platform where we just screen one short film a week. And the idea for that was that it's curated, there's a conversation around it, people can go watch a short film because it needs to be like focused, because there's so much content. But other than that, we do usually not rely on ticket sales, but we have in-person screenings where it's ticket sales. And I think what we discussed yesterday or today was that the issue with like attendance or support from like audience members is the barriers that are in place that I'm not entirely sure or convinced that we're working towards removing. So one of those barriers is ticket sales or like ticket prices. It's one thing if you're in the film industry and you can maybe get free tickets here and there, but if you have £10, let's say, and you can only choose one film, and there's like an excellent release of films, and you can only pick one, that's when it becomes a competition. You know, if we reduce ticket prices in the UK is like 12, 13, 14 pounds. It's quite a lot of money. That it's like really a serious decision. And I think sometimes you just crash and you just stay at home and watch a film. I am fascinated by what does a non-film person go to the cinema for. I have no idea. Like, I literally have no idea, because I have been living and breathing film for a very long time, and so I understand why I go and what takes me to the cinema. I have no idea. Is it the billboard? Is it the review? It's all of those things, but it also needs to be easier. We can't be lamenting. You know what you said in terms of demand is like, we can't be upset that people aren't going to the cinema, because it's just simply that we're not giving them what they need. We're not being flexible, and there are, other choices to be made. I'm really amazed by the conversations that I hear young people have online about stuff they're watching. I started watching White Lotus because everyone was telling me to watch like White Lotus. Like, it's all these kind of things that obviously I think people are consuming more. I think people are watching a lot. I think subscriptions are selling. It's the fact that maybe we're not, sort of jumping in on what's needed in cinema.
I just, yeah.
Just a follow-up. I can hear what you're saying and about the ticket prices, and again, drawing the analogy between readership. There are public libraries. You can go and read a book for free. What about public cinemas? Do you think would that be impactful? Like, I could go and see a film without paying for that. Would that drive social change? Yeah, all for that, but what do you think? What would change?
I do that quite a lot of our work is, or my work in audience development is setting aside part of the tickets to community organizations to make sure that but then where's the continuation of that? And what happens after? Like, if I can have a space for free and the film for free, I don't care about selling tickets. Like, of course I don't care about selling tickets if all those things are free for me. But the reality is it's not. And like, I think even, because we talked about this a lot, even if you sell out a cinema screen, as a programmer, the cinema might be okay, but as a programmer, you're not making any money. So there's a whole, the system is broken in terms of how it's funding itself. Cinema should be free, of course. So, yes.
Thank you for this questions, actually, because I had a couple of questions and I had a couple of stories to tell you, basically, concerning like if cinema should be free. I remember the first edition of Spectrum when we were thinking, because we actually replaced a film festival that was for free. But we wanted to be like more, let's say, art house, we wanted to bring guests, etc., etc. And I remember, this discussion, should we actually, the the tickets, we were afraid of selling tickets because maybe the people won't come because the price of the ticket was really silly. It was like 5 zloty or 7 zloty at the time, or 10 zloty, I don't remember. And we called Roman Gutek at the time because he actually called us to organize this festival there, and he told us like, just be brave. I mean, also with the programming. So just, it's not, when you give someone something for free, so they take it for granted. And I know at least 2 film festivals that they are for free, and one in Wrocław. So they giving out the tickets because I mean, the people, of course, like take the tickets and they don't come to the cinema, to the screening, because it's for free. So I don't care. I mean, I don't care if I will come or not, because I didn't spend the money. So this is the first. I mean, you have to pay sometimes little money. I mean, in Spectrum, you have like the ticket costs like 10 zloty. It's like, yeah, just to commit yourself. This is the. This is just to answer this question or this part of the conversation. But the second one that you mentioned, like, is there, I mean, too many films on the market to be watched? So I mean, this is actually the very important part of curating, and I think this is the future of film industry, like the curators, the programmers, and I will give you one example. Like 2 weeks ago, I have a conversation with Michał Oleszczyk, Spoiler Master, and I mean, he was amazed because he is like showing these 10 best films of Spoiler Master, and he was, I mean, that was a screening of one of the film of Buster Keaton, and it was full, really, like sold out. So, you know, it was curated, and you wouldn't say that it's like, you know, you can watch the film in internet, on YouTube, but people want to come because it was curated, because it was introduced, because it had like this narration story around the film. Yeah, you have to create this narration. You have to create the brand. You know, we talk about the brand, you know. Once you create the brand, the people will come not for the movie, but for the brand, for you. Oh, like Michał Oleszczyk is like putting this film in the cinema. I don't care about the film because I like his taste, so I will come. So this is what we are actually doing all the time by creating, like programming films, just creating the brand. And this I think this is the future.
Yeah, thank you. It was really important what you said, but talking about cinema for free, it's yeah, it's a huge topic in our association last years. But I think, you know, if you wanna eat the bread and you are going to bakery, you have to pay for it, and the film is someone's work. So I don't understand why the culture should be for free. If it's for free, it doesn't matter for a lot of people. It's like, as Paweł said, it's people are not coming when they have screening for free. They are not coming. They, of course, saying, okay, I will come, but at the end they will not. And from the other side, as I said, for me, it's someone's work, so it should be, we should pay for that, but more important is to create the needs. If audience don't have a need to go to the cinema and to watch this kind of film and hear what the director or somebody else has to say, it doesn't matter if it's for free, if it's not. That's it for me.
So I think it's an important thing that not all cinemas, but some cinemas should be very accessible. Because I grew up going to these cinemas. They were art house cinemas. They were costing 2 reales, so 50 cents of euro, and that's why I escaped every day my house to go to the cinema, and that's where I met all these people. So I think definitely there should be cinemas that in this landscape that are very accessible and that makes up for the democratic access to cinema. And I find that can also generate new audiences. But of course, the value of the work of art is not in the money, so also we have to think about how to support all this ecosystem, all these costs. The money can be through different sources. Still, I find it's a good idea to always have like a €1 or €2 ticket. I find it helpful for making this passage, you know, that I decided that I will go to get a ticket and I will enter in the cinema. And about audiences, yeah, so I have my personal opinion about like the relevance of film events is also, and I think Tape is doing a super nice work about that, you know, like, I don't remember the name of the title of the collection you made.
But where are we really from?
Like, where are we from? No. But where are we from? And then I also see like they created a program, and also they put it there, international film, super interesting, but also they created with a personal intention to the audience. They're not repeating something. They have a personal reason to show that to the audience. I find that can be very powerful and very calling the audiences to join us. So I think it's important to be an experience nowadays, going to the cinema. So it's like, during the pandemic, we ate many pizzas. It's like getting a pizza in the supermarket or going to your favorite Italian place in the neighborhood and have a nice dinner with someone you like. I would say that's the difference between navigating content and going to a very nice film. And I think that we should invest more on that, on the community, on the experience of cinema. And mostly, sincerely, I have a personal problem when I go nowadays to the cinema and I feel like it's being shown things that are shown always since 10 years, 20 years, as if the world have not changed. I really like when films are talking present and that we can discuss important social and stylistic, even artistic issues from our time. So I don't like to go to a cinema that is like the repetition, like continuous industrial production of the same. I want, and even sometimes I feel like when I go to some events and the film is not so good, but they are trying to do something good, and the creators are there, and the intention is good, and it's creating community, because it's not only about the screen, it's also about the ideas and the community it generates. So I'm not sure. I think that we have a huge responsibility in bringing the audiences to the cinema as well, and that we should concentrate on that side.
Yeah, I would come back to your question about food, and for me there's an issue of I want to eat nice or have an offer of eating nice food every day, and I don't necessarily want to eat a gargantuan meal once a year, which is a festival. And so essentially you have to balance out what festivals are doing to bring like the one time this film is ever going to be screened in the country, and the audiences are forced to go and watch all these films at the same time, and then the need actually to have all those kind of films all year round. And so the sort of how can cinemas be like, have the offer of festivals but have that all year round? And so that's for me is like, as a cinema goer, I'm not necessarily always in the mood to see 50 films in 1 week. I want to see one of those films every year, or two a day, or something like that. But so I think that anyway, that's kind of. But no, thank you very much for your questions. It's really, really nice to hear your take on this thing. But I think also this thing of curators are trying to help sort out through all this mass of media that you have, just to say, hey, we looked at this and we think this is good, or we like this, or something, because it's like that's the job. That the amount of films that they're watching all the time is to help sort out wade through the mess of films. Yeah, sorry.
And I just think like this point that I'm really happy when the audience and the creators they join and also the curators. I feel nowadays it inspires me a lot when people are curating or showing a film for a passionate reason. I think that can be super good.
Brilliant. Anyone else? Yeah, okay.
I want to address to something that Marlena said earlier, because about people not coming to free events. I think it's totally not true, because like since last year, me and group of 6 friends, we are organizing film events every 2 weeks in Poznań, and they are fully free. We don't have any financing. We are just talking with directors that we love your film, we want to show it. We don't charge our viewers for that, and every venue, every single time is full, like up to more than 100 people. And I'm going to a lot of events in Poznań that you have to pay for, and there are not so many people there. So like I think people just trust us and just trust our program, our taste, and like we are basing on that. We depend on that. So it's not always that free events are not interesting.
Yeah, I didn't say it's general rule, but it's what you said. What I said. I mean, you created the needs that people want to join you and watch something special. It's not I presume it's not the film which we can see in the other cinema. It's not the regular distribution. Yeah, it's something unique. That's what we are talking about. When I was the manager of the cinema, and I had a really huge room for 400 seats, and we also had in our program free screenings, financial by local government, and it was always like that we the free tickets were sold out. I mean, not sold out, but we gave them to the people. But at the end, we had like 100 people. So, you know, it depends on what you are doing and how unique is your program. But for me, it's not because of the money, but because of the needs which you create in the audience.
And can I just say, it's about something that we talked together. Maybe it's also about brand, because you said that you are, sorry, I'm telling it loud, but you said that you are a little bit stressed when you are programming something, but then you said that everyone is coming because they like your brand and they don't really care if films will be very good or just fine. It's also about the brand. It's something that we were talking about, and that's what curating now is. Not only film itself, but something that is around it.
I would like to talk about 2 points. One point is like this need that is created. For example, like when I think about Polish market, I mean, 2 years ago, I wouldn't thought that like horror, B-class horror will be watched, and Octopus Film Festival created the need to watch like really trashy films, and it has like a great audience. So this is, and it's paid as far as I know. And the second point, you know, it's okay that there are like events that are for free, but some of the films you can't really, you know, show, because you have to pay as a distributor. You can't call Ruben Ostlund, and of course you can, but and Ruben maybe would like to show the film, but there is like a chain of, you know, people you have to pay, like sales agent, distributors, producers, etc., etc. So it's great that there are like events around for free, like with a little bit lower, like not like quality of films, but little bit lower, like I don't know how it called. Yeah, not even the price, like don't know. It's just accessible, like exactly. But there is definitely need, you know, to
I think, okay, actually we have time for one more question or one final comment from everybody. If you have one more, anything left you would like to say? Okay, amazing. I think is it, you want to
I can say something really optimistic, like, thank you so much for coming, this has been amazing. I think it's wonderful to be able to discuss these things. I think that there's, you know, I'm very sort of solution-based, and so it's really nice to sit in a room with people who do want to talk about the solutions, and they're okay with the hardships. Like, we all accept it, it's not a secret, we're not ashamed to say that there's flaws in the system. And you know, of this whole discourse that always repeats itself every 20 years about is cinema dead? No, it is not. Things are being created all the time. Spaces are being created, spaces are needed. Maybe there's like a little sort of dip at the moment, but there's plenty of ideas and creatives and people that want to, you know, offer an experience, and I think that's really what audiences want.
Just one sentence to all the people that want to be creators. I mean, the future is actually curating films and curating festivals, and I strongly believe that we need more creators and programmers, because this is the way how we can reach really people and convince them that cinema is alive, because cinema is alive at the end, and it will be for years now.
And for me, it doesn't matter if we are doing this for free or for money for the audience. It's most important is to create the needs and bring the audience back to our venues, to the cinemas, and just to create this community. This is most important thing, and this is our main goal. I mean, I think as a curators.
Yeah, for me, I think the real important thing in my job is to protect artistic freedom and to support artistic freedom. And I am working in a country where I feel we have one of the best systems of the world for cinema, but this system disempower the artists and give the power to other mediators on the way. It's not a system interested in the artist to thrive, but in the industry to thrive. So I think it's very important when I'm creating, but also when I'm creating, I just want it to be a very good film that tells something important to the audience. And I think that should be always the heart of what we do. And we should not accept when decisions are taken for other reasons. That's not the quality of the artwork and what the freedom of expression of people and the communication between different people of our society. And then I just also want to thank you to be here, because also I think it's very important in our industry to have these moments where we are like sitting, taking a coffee, having food and like debating things. Because of the structural conditions of cinema, we are always rushing to produce something, and it's really exhausting the cultural makers, and it's really also letting the cinema landscape very paralyzed, because we need to go 2 days without an objective, like artists do sometimes. We need to talk about things without a solution. We need to create these think tanks and also to be able to have a process, a creative process. That's very important. We have to shape the cinema of the future, and we have a lot of socioeconomical challenges that we also have to respond. And we talked many times also that there is a lot of discommunication between the different parts of the sector. So I find it's an initiative that I'm very happy to be part. And also because I was working a lot, so it really provided me some days to be a human being again.
No, thank you to Shortwaves and all the organisation, Julia, Shimon, everybody who's here. Really, thanks so much. And the panel. Thank you.